live. Where does it go to?
Yeah.
Where do you have
We
it
are
streaming to?
on yeah, we're live now. We're on YouTube and LinkedIn right now.
Okay.
Looks like LinkedIn's taking a second to load up, but um here with Shawn Allard today, we are going to be talking about a few different topics. I've sort of noticed over the past, I don't know, decade or so that I've been hosting events, I mean, even since college, that sometimes the people that create community can sometimes be the most disconnected from it because, like, we get in a point where we're hosting or we're leading something and we don't always get a chance to like talk to everybody. So that's always been something I have thought about.
Yeah, it's interesting. We get so many questions about like why are you doing this? What's the point? And so I think it's this is a good opportunity to dive into some of the general questions that we always get as hosts and like community builders. And so yeah, this is kind of a kickoff to this monthly series that we're going to be hosting, and our hope is to bring on some of the best and most talented community builders in the world. Honestly, we've been talking to some people even in other countries at this point, and so yeah, the goal is to bring those folks on and chat about how they're doing it and some best practices around what it takes to build real community. And I think you are one of the kind of the best people to sort of work with on this because you've, like you said, you've been doing this for almost a decade. I'm actually very new to this. This is like less than 2 years for me. So the folks that like meeting you and all the folks that I've met in the last 2 years has been a gift in many ways and has given me the insight into what it really takes to build real community and not just some paid marketing funnel, if you will.
hmm Yeah, yeah, and those have their place too. I think when we I joined the other guys here in Austin to start Austin Connections, they had already been doing it for a while, and we had spent time and effort to sort of bring pool resources and pull them together. And one of the things I learned the most was partnerships and doing it with someone else. I know right now, Sean, you at least when I met you last year at South by Southwest, you were doing a lot of it yourself. And I can already see you've shifted. Like you've already taken, I don't know, I'm probably like now one of four people that you're collaborating with, right? Or you got like we have a virtual series together. We're doing some in-person events in Phoenix, and then you're doing like two or three other series, right?
Hmm. You're honestly the only person I am consistently like quote unquote partnered with, and so we have this like recurring thing going where we've sort of like mingled our communities together to do, like you said, the virtual series and such. But I've, when it comes to partnerships, I've done like one-off or two-off events with specific companies or individuals. So that has helped one bring their audience, into play, and obviously get the people that have been coming to my events in front of them, and vice versa. So most of the partnerships are more one-off, like event-specific stuff. But truthfully, I haven't started doing these partnerships until I would say 6 months ago. So it was at least a year in before I started working with other people, and it was also a year in before I started seeing like real traction behind what I was doing. And you
Hmm
can probably speak to this, where it just takes time, and there really isn't a benefit to bringing on, like, let's say, a company or a sponsor or a partner until you have some sort of audience. Obviously, there's definitely benefit to working with somebody else that's building community in another state or another city, because then you can sort of leverage that audience to start building your own, if you will. But there is, yeah, there's definitely some benefit to working with other people, and I have a problem with this in general. I'm not the best at like saying, hey, I need like a co-founder or I need a partner for this. Like I just try to do it all myself,
hmm
and that's just not always the best way to do it, especially when it comes to community stuff, like there's so much that goes behind the scenes. I'm just hosting a single happy hour that like you just don't need to do that alone.
Yeah, yeah. I've been there too. I had a few in college. I used to do mixers all the time, and then after college, I was doing a lot of professional stuff. And part of my job was professionally networking. So I kind of learned, I don't know how a lot of different people did it. But like you're saying, I have people come to me and they say, I want to start this community, I want to do this thing or whatever it is. And I'm always thinking, it makes sense that you want to monetize or you want to create this thing that I mean, everybody who is and that we've spoken to so far, we've already had 2 interviews now that we'll be releasing. Everyone that we talk to either has figured out a way to monetize it or they are just simply doing for it what it is, which I've always tell people that a lot of times building community is more philanthropic than it is profitable. If you're able to have a business that benefits from having a good network, then that's always the best way. But it's never really been my thing to charge people for attendance or try to there's nothing wrong with those business models at all, but they will come in and say, well, how do I start this 6-figure business off of a network that I don't even have? And like you said,
Mm.
if you could leverage another person's audience is good, but I think people, at least here in the Austin community, I've heard a lot of different things different in different metros like New York and San Francisco. People like it when they go to paid events because then it's sort of a filter. But here in Austin, specifically, just our market, people aren't tolerant. Like I'm going to a comedy show tonight that's free and there's
Wow,
350
that's
people
awesome.
signed up. Yeah. So that's kind of Austin though. Then I'm sure they have like some different comedy series or maybe they're going to host something. So I think also learning about that and just in general, like I'm very bullish on community for 2025. And I hope that even just one person, if they're watching us here, even if they already have the information they need, that they just start whatever it is, whatever community, because I think bringing people together is very unique. And so part of what we're talking about is how we're going behind the scenes with a lot of these things. You know, who we've talked to over the years. You've been doing it 2 years. I've been doing it over a decade. And since we both built it from scratch, um, let's talk a little bit about why we built the series. I think organizers sometimes can be a little bit lonely, maybe without resources. I'm hoping to build like cross pollination. What kinds of things do you feel like someone would benefit from these sessions that we'll be hosting?
I think to start, it's just like how to do this from scratch, right? Like how to host your first event. That might be the most valuable thing because I hear it all the time. I just spoke to somebody in the accounting space yesterday, and she is out in San Francisco actually, and she is wanting to host monthly accounting firm owner events and things like that. And she's just like, man, this is so overwhelming. I don't like, I'm scared that 5 people are going to show up and I'm going to be there awkward, like not knowing what to say. So at its core, it's like, how do you host an event from scratch, right? And then two, it's what does that cadence look like? What is, you know, what's kind of the checklist that you need to make sure you have? And every community is going to look different, right? Whether you use name tags or you don't, whether you have icebreakers or you don't, there's 1,000 different ways to do this. And like there are happy hours and there's private dinners, like there's 1,000 structures too. So I think from a high level, it's how do you host events? What are some best practices around just general community building, and what does it look like to have a real community versus a I don't know a bit. It's hard for me to word this, but I look at it as like community versus business, right? Like, is this a business for you, or is this genuinely just a network and a community that you're building for other people, not necessarily for yourself? So, how to do that organically to where it feels very authentic and generous, and you are you're able to benefit over time. Like, how can you benefit over time from building this sort of organic community?
Hmm.
And so for, you know, with the 2 people that we spoke to recently, they've clearly outlined that this is a long-term play. This isn't a turn on, $1,000 conference and sunset to the moon with 1,000 members. This is just ground level marketing over time, talking to people, and so yeah, I think overall, just how do you do this stuff, and what does it take, and what does it look like over a couple of years if you're able to do it the right way?
Yeah, I like what you said there. It comes across to me as a labor of love, something that you
Yeah.
would do because you truly enjoy it. I find also when you said ground marketing really sticks with me. The way that I've grown, even the smaller stuff that I've done, and Weston and Drew, who I work on with Austin Connections, are really great guys. Like we honestly attend a lot of other people's events,
Hmm.
and I never go to another event with a flyer. It's just not my style. But naturally, we get into a conversation. They follow me on LinkedIn. I post about the event. They learn about the other stuff that I'm doing, and so it becomes like this reciprocal thing where, of course, you're just kind of cross pollinating, but in a really quality way. And yes, we've done advertising. Yes, we've syndicated across Eventbrite and Meetup.com and things like that, and we've learned lessons from all of those things syndicating with other event organizers in the area. We promote their stuff, we promote ours. And that's how we had over 6,000 people come through our group. It was consistency and really a lot of that, you know, I wash your hands, you wash my hands, whatever you want to
Hmm.
say.
Hmm.
And yeah, the of the two interviews, the Austin Health and Wellness Community Builder, I mean, he's had thousands of people go through there. And it's a business engine for him. He has a consulting business that he serves those people, so it makes sense. And then the woman from Bali who's just really smart. She moved to Bali. She built a whole network there and did like a philanthropy thing. And now she's in Australia building from scratch. So I think like this really matters. And in an age of AI, if you will, and uncertainty around what's next there, that really these are the things that are going to be standing, us having communities and so on.
100%. 100%. And I think now more than ever, like yes, we do the virtual stuff, and it's awesome because we get to educate people, and it's an easier way for us to connect Austin and Phoenix, and honestly now we've gotten people from all over the country on those. But the beauty in building community is that you become that person that's able to connect people face to face, and that's what I've noticed people are craving. I just hosted a bigger mixer last night, and I swear like 75% of the people were like, I'm so tired of Zoom meetings. Like I just wanna come to stuff like this and talk to people and hang out for an hour and have a beer, and 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 it's that simple. Like there's so much value in just being that go-to person that can like curate these environments for people in person. Like the in-person stuff trumps everything else that we're doing online, truthfully. And that if you do have a business on the back end, it will likely help you build that, right? Whether it's a consulting business, an agency, a software, like there is benefit from a business perspective to building in-person communities or even virtual communities. But I think like I always go back to this. It's like build a real community first, and then you will see the results. Don't build the community to build the software company, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm seeing like I won't stray off on this path too long because I'm very passionate about it. But I think I have a lot of very smart friends who are builders and they build things, and so they come up with great ideas and they are empowered to make it happen. And even more so now because pretty much with an idea, name your AI tool. I won't go through that. You could build something, a website, even at the basic to like pitch an idea. And there's also this overwhelm. There's like all these different kinds of businesses I could start. There's all like the possibilities seem more endless than they ever have been. And I see my intuition showing me, at least in some way, that the differentiating factor is going to be audience. Because, yeah, there might be 25 different tools that you and I, Sean, could use as organizers. I have my favorites, you have your favorites, but it's really going to come down to eventually one day, we're going to know someone or be in someone's, circle that's going to have a really good one that may have the same features, but it might be Sean's event platform. And I'm going to use Sean's event platform because I know Sean, because I'm also in the other communities. So there will be a space for like larger companies, I think will have a hard time surviving this change because they're set up for massive scale. But I think that the community portion of it is going to be center and key to a lot of business past 2025. So part of the reason why I say bullish on community, and also why I think this is also a very, very strong position, but done authentically. If you are simply just putting people into a funnel, I think those days are gone. Marketers have really lost their advantages to where they could kind of dupe people to think that, you know, like your newsletter, for example, if I were to take that as a case study, is
Mhm.
beautiful. It has a lot of info, you have a lot of events, and we've talked about like it can be overwhelming, and then we've run into that
Mhm.
too. But I feel more connected with you sharing your business journeys and everything you have, and it's on a micro level. You've got a lot more
Yeah.
influence as someone who does that.
Yeah, yeah. And if I were to go back, I would actually start the newsletter on the front end and start sharing my story. And this, I think this goes for anybody who's thinking about doing this stuff and maybe even is working on a business or building something from scratch. It's like, just go out and talk about this stuff and maybe host events based on what you're planning on doing in the future or currently building, right? I'm in the food space. So if I were to start over, maybe my newsletter is very specific to the food space and I start hosting events for people in the food space and we can just share best practices and things like that. But it starts from me just sharing my journey and all the people that resonate with that now have a reason to come speak to me in person or have a reason to come to these events because uh, there's transparency and all that. So it doesn't need to be a newsletter, but it can be just general content online, right? LinkedIn, Twitter, just share your story and be authentic and don't have this kind of hidden agenda. It's like, here's what I'm working on and would love for you to be a part of it. And in turn, at this point, this is kind of like a humble brag, if you will, but I feel like with the newsletter, if I were to offer something for sale, which I don't really have, but if I were to say, I'm building a software company, right, and I'm looking for my first 100 users, I could probably get those 100 users fairly easily just based on the newsletter alone. I wouldn't really have to market or spend money on meta ads or anything like that. Like I can just send 1,000 emails and say, hey, I've built a relationship with you over the last 2 years. You've seen me in person on a monthly basis. Do you want to take part in what I'm building or do you want to help me build this thing? And I bet you that would spark 100 people overnight, right? Same goes with you. Anything that you're talking about, people know you. If you built a software company tomorrow or whatever the business is, you'd have 100 users like that.
Yeah, yeah, it's incredible, and that's I think the point of the time. Then the I think what gets people is it's a time investment, and some people like to buy their advantage, so they will use money to accelerate things, which is great. You either build it or buy it. That's my thought around business. And you have to have already something that you've worked on, or you're using money as fuel to amplify something. I did have a quick note I wanted to make, but I want to do a time check because I know we're a minute over. Do you have like 5 more minutes?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
I'm good.
The thing you said about when you started out that really caught my mind, and I'm genuinely interested, and I think it would help other people to hear this too. You mentioned that you're in the food space. When you started, you were doing something more broad because you're kind of figuring things out. When you look back at that and you were to restart that again, do you think that it is still a disadvantage to be more of a generalist, or do you identify as that, or are you learning? Like, what are you learning there? And do you see the advantage of being generalist? Are you planning on niching down? I'm curious to know your
Yeah.
thoughts.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of value in being a generalist when it comes to hosting communities because then you can always have your main sort of, like if we're looking at it from a marketing perspective, we've talked about this a ton, but your main event can be your top of funnel, right? It brings all kinds of people in. And then you can curate from that into niche events. So for myself, I like a lot of different things. I don't want to talk about the food space all day long, every single day. And I want to meet other people as well. I don't want to just spend my time with restaurateurs. If I did, absolutely. I would start over. I would only talk about the food space or my journey through the food space and build events and curate restaurateurs, whether it's dinners, mixers, happy hours, all that. But for somebody like myself who has a ton of different interests, I love health and wellness, I love general business, I love the restaurant space. So by starting off with a general business owner slash professional service style event, or just let's call it a community, I have the ability in a year or two after it's seen significant traction to curate smaller events from there. And I can say, hey, this 20-person event is only for restaurateurs. This event is only for health and wellness, or this is a workout, right? This is a private workout for 20 people. I did that in Austin like a year ago. And still general business owners, but those 20 people are super into health and wellness. Now we have some other way to connect versus just talking about business, right? We're into those. We have that common interest, if you will. So it depends on the goal. Like if you just want to talk about your niche, then yeah, build a community within that niche, and you'll get 100 to 200 really diehard fans of you and your community. But you will have a little bit more of a challenge when it comes to separate curation or a variety or like hosting a variety of different events, if that makes sense.
Hmm. Yeah, and I
What are your
think
thoughts? I'm curious to hear, like, if you, because I know you have a very similar approach where you've hosted your main event, which brings in a lot of different people, and then you've
mhm,
hosted even bigger events, like you've done summits and like giant parties and things like that. So,
mhm.
yeah, what are your thoughts?
First, everything you shared is really great. One thing I really liked about it is that you're talking about how to take and curate specific audiences for certain things. I love doing the big parties. They're fun. I did a conference, hundreds of people went to that. We through the Austin Connections group and the other guys, like I mentioned, Weston and Drew, we do South by Southwest parties as well. I think this last year we had 500 people there, which was just
That's
incredibly big.
crazy.
Yeah, but here's the thing, and sort of the start of all this conversation from the beginning is that it's amazing to do, and like there is a separation, I think, between like I was I was having lunch today with someone, and she was saying like the separation between like ego and then this desire to like really connect with people, and it really had me thinking even before our talk is that from an ego standpoint, it's very cool to be able to say like, hey, we host these parties, we did this stuff. And I can say that the best ones are I used to host this one called No Tech Night, and we would take people into I brought people into my house. We did a few other homes around, but it was like 10 up to 20 people at the biggest it ever got. And we would take their phones away. We would put it in a literal phone jail, which would be in the middle of the room, and everybody's cell phones would be on top of each other. Who knows how much radiation was coming off of that? And we would take out little slips of paper that were like conversation starters, and then every group would separate and come back. I say this to for context that I had, I mean, there were not that everybody wants this at an event, of course, but there were people crying. There were people, someone got married from that whole effort.
Wow.
Um, People started businesses together. And so, like, I really got a lot of personal satisfaction between not only curating the group, but also providing a context for how they could interact with each other. And it was challenging. There was a theme, but we did that. So that's like the maximum in a small group. And then all the way from doing like larger groups where you mentioned things like name tags. I've done conversation starters and teaser. One of the videos that we have coming up with organizers, there's a really special game that one of them created and curated to make these experiences at scale, which is also exciting. But the there's like a I don't know, there's probably some kind of chart that could be made to illustrate like the amount of connection you get, the amount of clout or ego you receive as an organizer, the amount of results and happiness that someone gets out of the event. And I find that it is a bit of a balance, and not every event could be everything, but doing just enough of something to be non-obvious or unique. And
Yeah.
then I think those make the best organizers.
Yeah, I think there's in the beginning and even now, right? You'll get a ton of feedback from guests when you host these bigger events are like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. I met awesome people. And obviously that's an ego boost. You're like, oh my gosh, I did this. Like, this is so much fun. And you feel like the ultimate connector, right? And so it does feed the ego, but I think the real value and the best, like, personal and professional ROI comes from those more curated events. There's nothing better, or there's no better feedback that I've received than the 10 to 20 person dinners, workouts, like even people showing up to your house. There's no way they don't remember that forever. Like, these people are literally crying in your living room, right? So there's ultimate, like, personal satisfaction from being able to curate environments like that for people, because it's rare. Like, nobody really does that. I know of like 4 people in Arizona that are like really hosting events. And maybe I'm just not at the loop, but like, there's not a lot of people doing this stuff. So people are like craving these very small, tight knit, environments. And when you can curate it, when you can get very niche, right? Going to, let's say we're looking at a dinner that I did recently was for $1 million plus business owners, right? And those people want to meet other people so they can talk best practices and such. And all of those people are like, wow, I can't believe this guy's here. This is awesome. I've actually wanted to meet this person before, but never was able to get in front of him. And so even though they could have been at this bigger no agenda mixer, now you've curated this down. You've given them talking points, and anyways, we can go on,
Now
but
all you need to do is invite them to your living room to cry.
yeah, that's
See,
you know
that's the solution.
right as you said that, I've never hosted something intimate like that, because the event you just hosted with a couple of guys, uh, what was that, last 2 months ago, last
Yeah,
month?
2 months ago. Yeah, yeah,
That honestly, these guys are like some of my best friends now. Like, we're going, Brandon and some of these other guys, we're going to get lunch tomorrow, right? And I met
yeah,
these guys 2 months ago because of you. And so the the idea now that I have is even curating this down more, and doing stuff like literally in my apartment.
yeah,
Like, hey, let's
yeah,
bring 5 people together, talking points, couple, food and bev, whatever it is, and just like enjoy an hour or two of company on a Friday or Saturday night versus going to the bar. And
yeah,
those are lifelong relationships and connections that come out. So there's
yeah.
so much value there.
Well, I'm glad to hear that that everything was great. Like I think the time in Phoenix for that event for me was very much pivotal, and I also would just, as much as I even so honest to say, like, there's the ego factor always of like, hey, I made this connection or whatever, but I don't really feel that way anymore because I think like what I do pride myself on is identifying good people. I feel
Mm,
like I met you, we talked for maybe 10 minutes and then we had this idea, and like look at us a year later, we're executing it. So of course I take risks and I try it, and sometimes people are different than I think they are, which is great. And also it's really the people that show up are the ones doing the work. Like, maybe I identified them or I gave them a chance to do something and invited them. And I have had to make the tough call over the years of like not inviting people to things, not because I don't like them, but I just the type of thing we're doing is very specific and I have a vision for that. So from a masculine way, I feel like there's this like leadership quality that I want to exhibit,
so
and
true.
then show the way, but also I can still have an open event. And I think that if you can balance both of those is really good. I will give a honorable mention to 2 guys, which are incredible. And maybe if I'll share this video with them. If they're very busy, then maybe someday. But Tim and Tan are 2 very prolific networkers here in Austin. They started something called Skyline Dinners, which was one of my favorite event
Ooh,
series that I did. And what they did is they had a penthouse apartment or an equivalent downtown at a beautiful view of downtown. And it's less about the place, but more about the concept I'm about to share, is that they would invite, they bought this like table that expanded. I don't know how else to explain it. Had like 8 people in a tiny apartment. So I say this because this kind of beats on there's a book called Mastermind Dinners by an author whose name I don't recall at this time. We can put it in the show notes here. But they would bring 8 to 10 people together, and it was invite only, and it was people could invite people who had been before. So it was kind of like an alumni model where they would invite people that had already gone, and they would pay for everything. I won't put their numbers out there because it's personal, but they paid for everything and they invested a significant amount of money. They bought like the same meal every week, and they had someone come in and help serve everyone, and they did like a wine toast and all this stuff. I met some incredibly powerful people through there. It became an alumni network, and this was never paid. It was all gratis or whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
Then I mean it led to them like they ended up hosting like big social parties. I think right now Tan is hosting an amazing event called Latte, which is like a morning non-alcoholic coffee meetup on Saturdays where they do like EDM, and there's like 300 people in downtown. So like they met and hosted
Love
Gary
that.
Vaynerchuk here in Austin, and it's all from the network that they cultivated. They're working with investors. And so like when I look at them, they've been doing that longer than I have been doing anything here in Austin consistently. And I think that this is like one of the most actionable things that anyone can do as an organizer to have, like you said, like it doesn't have to be 8 people. I'm looking at a table here in the house. It's got 4 chairs in it. I can invite 2 other people over or 3 people over and serve them dinner, and it could be just as powerful.
Yeah, yeah. The dinner that I hosted last week, there was 5 and 5. There were 2 tables, or let's say 6 and 6. But I spoke to 2 people the entire time, and I was just so involved in that conversation. We just got lost, the 3 of us, and we like meant to move tables and everything. You were at the dinner beforehand, and everyone the same
It
thing
was
happened.
awesome.
Like everybody was into these conversations, and it almost felt weird to say like, hey, let's move this table over, like we want to like get people
Like,
to get
no,
on
don't
board,
move
but like,
us.
yeah, exactly. It's like, and so some of the, like even just those 2 guys alone, I could have hosted a dinner, literally just the 3 of us, and we would have had a blast. And those 2 are now doing business together. They're setting up a call in the next couple of days to start working on some investments and things like that's crazy, right? And that doesn't come from like an email intro. Uh, it does, but very rarely does that, turn into something, you know, fruitful for the both of them. So, yeah, there's so much value, and I'm actually going to read that book. I pulled it up. The author is
Mastermind dinners.
Jason Gagnard or
That's right.
Guynard.
Yeah.
This looks really interesting, and the dinners are something I want to double down on. There's actually a guy out of New York I'm going to connect you with, and this may be best for another time. But I just spoke to him, and he's only doing dinners. I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of people
Yeah.
doing this now,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
where
Yeah. I
they've
think it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be like a mass thing that you're doing. And we've been going through some shifts with our group and doing monthly instead of weekly just because the resources, labor, and otherwise are just becoming challenging to keep up with. But it automatically occurs to me whatever else I do is going to be very much more on the style that you're talking about.
yeah, I
I'd love to talk to him. Maybe he would be willing to chat with us and talk about what he's
100%.
doing.
I'm gonna message him when we jump off, and he's doing. I think he's doing monthly right now, but
Great.
he gets about
Yeah.
20 people, and
Wow. That's
he's
impressive.
yeah, he's doing. He can speak to exactly what we're talking about with private stuff. I mean, I think that's his full time thing at this point, which is crazy
Yeah.
to think about.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I know some people in your area. I won't say their names, but I know that there are like people in your networking sphere that are doing like that have made it their full careers to do networking and things like that. So it's
Yeah,
definitely powerful. Well, we can um the next stages are going to be us posting some interviews, some videos for everyone. And I really appreciated the talk today. If you had anything else you wanted to close on, otherwise, I think we're good to wrap.
yeah, I think so. There's nothing major I wanted to hit on, but this is going to be fun because we get to not only learn about what this looks like from like veterans in the space, but it's super valuable for other people to just hear what really goes into this, and in a non-traditional way. Like we're trying to do this more casually than like a professional podcast. It's just like, hey, let's chop it up for 20 or 30 minutes, and casual interview style, and we're all going to chop it up. It's more of a conversation than a true interview, if you will, sort of like what we just did. And the yeah, I think the real stuff comes from that. And so I'm excited to start getting some of these. I guess we'll call them interviews, but I'm excited to get these interviews out there and share with some people on how to start doing this stuff, because it's scary. Like I remember wanting to host my first thing, and I had the same fear of like, man, what if two people show up? What if nobody shows up and I'm standing there by myself, right, with a name tag?
Yeah.
Like that's and at the end of the day, like that very well might happen, and you just have to accept that. And but if you give yourself enough time and you listen to some of the people who have been there, done that, like you might crush it the first time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I have a lot to say about only one or two people because I've been there before, but we can
same,
riff on that. But
yeah,
I think I'm most excited, like you said, about this because we are making a podcast is just a little bit intimidating. I've done it before and I had one for a few years, and I think this is just an easier format. So, for anyone watching this long, you get a medal for this. And if you have any suggestions, if you have anyone that you want to nominate for us to speak with, I would love to, or anyone you know, or if you're an organizer, we'd love to talk with you and share your knowledge with the rest of us. And I think it's going to be really valuable.
I'm pumped. I'm pumped. I'll send some